with Phipps, and I work here at Fairhaven School, and I teach grade 2 and 3. From teaching Canadian history over the years, I've developed a landscape project, and the landscape project takes us from the Ice Age straight through to when the first settlers come to Saskatchewan. By doing this project, my children can see the changes in the landscape. We start by pulling a sheet off the landscape, showing that the glaciers move back, and they start to see brown earth, a river, and rocks, and that's all that's there. Then the next day we make trees, and we plant the trees in the north because in Saskatchewan our forests are in the north. After that we add some buffalo, and the buffalo come onto the landscape. They roam around the landscape for about a week, and while they're doing that, the children become historic detectives, and they find out as much as they can about the buffalo. After the buffalo have been on the landscape for about a week, we introduce the First Nations people. The First Nations people follow the buffalo, and as the herds move around the landscape, so do the First Nations people. We create a teepee community, and we do other activities based on First Nations people, and we learn the history of the First Nations people. Following week, we introduce the idea of fur trade. Fur trade is definitely a very big part of Saskatchewan, and we learn about how the fur trade had affected both First Nations people and the European people who came to Saskatchewan after the furs. In the morning, the children come into the classroom, and I have moved things around because I need them to be able to see the landscape develop and change. And they're always excited because they come in every morning and they're like, oh, everything changed. And then we gather around the landscape and we discuss why. The landscape project that we do in our classroom has a very strong First Nations and Métis component to it. I have often wondered, how could I possibly be teaching Canadian history and leave out First Nations and Métis? If you leave them out, then you have an unbalanced history, and I think that leads to problems in the current world. We need both worldviews to understand what happened and how Canada has developed. The First Nations people carry a great history, and we need to know it. So I have included that history. I have a large component of Aboriginal students in my classroom, and one might think that I was doing this to represent them in my classroom. And yes, I am. But I also feel that even if I had no Aboriginal students in my classroom, no First Nation students in my classroom, I would still teach this because we need to know our total and broad history, not just a part of the history. As an elementary teacher, as a primary teacher, I am asked many, many times, how can you be teaching Canadian history to children? They don't understand, they don't get it. And I think that they're wrong. I've watched these children. I've enjoyed watching them grow and to become detectives. They are excited, they are involved, they are looking for clues. And that if that's not what history is all about, I don't know what is.